Hello, my name is Dr. MarkAlain Dery. I'm the Medical Director of Infectious Diseases and the Chief Innovation Officer for Access Health Louisiana. I live here in New Orleans, Louisiana, and I serve as the co-chair for the ACOI Infectious Disease Subspecialty Section. You've seen me do these updates now for the past few months in conjunction with the leadership of the ACOI, and I hope that these messages are helping you keep up to date on the latest on COVID-19. I know many of you are in the thick of the fight, and I would like to thank you on behalf of all of us who focus daily on infectious diseases, and certainly on behalf of the leadership of the ACOI. Moving forward together with the ACOI, we will continue to share information as it becomes available, as well as some of the hopeful progresses that we are seeing. Speaking of the ACOI, are you registered? Are you registered yet for the virtual convention? And if you're not, you should do so today. There's an opportunity to save $50. That's 50 smackaroos before September 21st. So don't miss the chance. This virtual convention will be nothing that you've ever experienced before, virtually. They're pulling out all the stops to make this a cool event. Plus, with sessions from so many of our members, including this guy right here, you don't want to miss it. Yes, I will be doing a public health update on coronavirus. So I don't think of I can't think of a better way or less stressful way to get your CME credits for the year. So I look forward to seeing you there. All right, so on to the stories. So there is a really, really interesting story that came out of New England Journal, and it asks that could masks be acting as a crude vaccine? So all of you who've been following this video blog have heard me talk about the importance of masks, right? Firm believer of masks, and in fact, I've modeled several on this video blog before. So when I heard about this theory that was published also in the New York Times, but it was initially published in the New England Journal, about how masks may contribute to herd immunity, I knew I had to talk about it right here with you guys. All right, so to be clear, we want a vaccine, and while masks are no substitutes for a vaccine, I think it's still worth exploring this theory that masks may be helping create some sort of crude herd immunity. So how is this a possibility, you ask? Because I asked myself that same question as well. And so we know that masks are one of the best ways to stay healthy, of course, during COVID-19, since that they actually reduce the amount of of the SARS-CoV-2 virus that enter the airway, likely reducing the masked individual's chance of getting sick. So this theory is centered around just that there's a small amount of pathogens that can still slip through the mask, and this may prompt the body to produce an immune cells against it. And this is where I want to make sure that I emphasize that this is just a theory, and that without doing clinical trials, which may not be possible to do on a theory such as this due to, of course, ethical concerns, we can't say this is certain. So I'm not endorsing this, but I'm certainly intrigued that this theory, after all, is based on the assumption that lower doses of the virus lead to severe disease, and that that lower doses of the virus lead to less severe disease, and that mild cases or just being asymptomatic altogether, and that potentially could lead to long-term protection as well. So while we've seen this for other pathogens, we don't know if this is the case for coronavirus since we haven't been studying it for that long. And the only possible study that we can point to on the connection between the amount of virus and the severity of the disease is now the infamous hamster experience that we talked about here. They put surgical masks around cages of hamsters in the same setting, in the same place where they were exposed to coronavirus from another set of hamster cages that were not masked, and the virus that transmitted via droplets or via airborne ended up infecting these hamsters, and they found that they were far less symptomatic, or there was many of them that were completely asymptomatic as well. So I thought that was really interesting way of thinking about things. And so there's also been these great studies at University of Arizona that show that there may be strong lasting immunity even people who have developed only mild symptoms of COVID-19, which may give some credibility to the theory that masks allow just enough virus to trigger an immune response. So, of course, the danger to this theory is that possibly people who are mask wearers may begin to feel a false sense of complacency. Now, I know that's not going to be you, and that passive attitude may put those people at higher risk than they were previously, or it could go the other way and falsely be interpreted that masks don't do their job since they aren't impervious to dangerous droplets being transmitted. And I know you're not going to think that either. So, if the likelihood of masking is indeed reducing the viral inoculum to which the mask wearer is exposed, this leads to higher rates of mild or asymptomatic infection with COVID-19. That would certainly further validate the universal public masking during COVID-19 pandemic, and it should be one of the most important pillars of how we are dealing with COVID-19 at this time. Okay, so quickly moving on to going back to school and then teachers that are at risk. So it's September and the virus is still hanging over us. Back to school has caused a lot more anxiety than usual for parents, students, teachers, and administrators. And of course, I've been worried, and it's just a matter of time after schools open that we'll be seeing a spike in illnesses and deaths. And now I'm actually reading about it. I ran across this article that focused on a teacher in Missouri with asthma who was afraid of returning to school. She caught the virus. She died 3 weeks later. So how much is happening throughout the country, and how many cases are we seeing like this? Well, at least 6 that we know of right now from Missouri, Mississippi, South Carolina, Iowa, and Oklahoma have died as the fall semester is just starting in their districts. It's not clear they caught the virus at school, but you have to wonder, and it's unclear how many teachers in the U.S. so far have become ill with COVID-19 since the new school year began. But Mississippi alone has reported 604 cases amongst high school teachers and staff. The New York City Department of Education, during the early phase of the pandemic, claimed that they lost 31 teachers and 75 employees due to coronavirus. And across the U.S., the American Federation of Teachers lists 210 union members who have died. That list includes support staff and retirees, as well as teachers, and there's certainly more than what we know or what is being reported. But teachers just aren't sitting back and doing nothing. Yay, teachers. One superintendent in Arizona penned an opinion piece in the Washington Post that was published, and I'm sure you probably heard about it. He frankly admitted that he felt unqualified to make the choices that he was being forced to make, which was if he would open the school and risk the health of his teachers and staff, and not open and risk losing federal funds. He had already had one teacher who died this summer, which was a heartbreaking story. The teacher's brother caught it too and then died. Like I said, it's a heartbreaking story. Her husband got it as well, was hospitalized and survived. Other teachers sharing the classroom where they were all masked and socially distant caught the virus too, and thankfully they lived. His Washington Post piece got widespread attention and national attention, actually. In Texas, the Teachers Union is launching a COVID-19 website to track cases and deaths and unsafe work conditions in Texas schools. Teachers felt like they needed to do something to gain some control. Behind the efforts is an organization called United for Respect. Right, yes. The same team behind the COVID-19 track tool for employees of Walmart and Amazon distribution warehouses. The teacher's website is stopthespreadtx.school. That's stopthespreadtx.school. Teachers are also resigning and retiring early. One music teacher in Arizona resigned, citing fears about coronavirus and in-person learning scheduled for the fall. He worried that teaching kids to sing and play instruments could not be done safely in a classroom, and I agree. He hated doing it and felt distraught after that, but soon found out that the school district was suing him for thousands of dollars for breach of contract. Oy. I 100% agree. I think that time will tell. Although I think that it's fairly obvious now that these sorts of situations, that we're asking teachers and schools to do more, constantly to do more with less, and unless we as a country and as a federal government pump more money into these schools and to give them the supplies needed to do this safely, I really fear for what's going to happen in the future. Okay, with that being said, let me just say, please stay on the lookout for our regular updates, and to read more from our sources used in this report, go to the acoi.org/COVID-19. And together with the ACOI, we'll help you have the latest information to help you respond to your patients and stay on top of the crisis. Please feel free to reach out to me at madery@mac.com. Please stay safe, and we can do this together. Thank you guys so much.